The CEO found his blind date crying in the parking lot. She said he saw my uniform and left. The man she'd spent 2 weeks talking to disappeared 3 minutes after seeing her uniform. Lily Brooks sat alone at a table set for two, staring at a basket of complimentary bread she hadn't touched. 40 minutes earlier, she'd been helping an 87-year-old resident named Frank through what he cheerfully referred to as another glamorous Tuesday. In reality, it had involved cleaning vomit off his shirt, changing bed linens, and convincing him not to flirt with every nurse in the building. Now she was sitting in one of the nicest restaurants she'd visited in years, wearing navy blue scrubs beneath a light jacket, wondering why she was surprised. Again, she glanced at her phone. No message, no explanation, nothing. Across the dining room window, she could still see the reflection of the moment it happened. Ryan Foster had walked in, smiled, recognized her, then noticed the uniform. Noticed the small embroidered patch on her chest, senior care assistant. His smile had hesitated, only for a second, but Lily had seen it. People always thought they hid disappointment better than they actually did. 3 minutes later, Ryan's phone had supposedly rung. He'd stepped outside and never come back. Lily let out a short laugh that sounded suspiciously close to a sigh. 27 years old. Third blind date disaster. Second one involving a mysterious emergency. At least this man hadn't pretended his grandmother was dying. That had happened last year. The waiter approached carefully. "Would you like another few minutes?" Lily managed a smile. "No. I think I've officially been voted off the island." The waiter winced sympathetically. That somehow made it worse. 5 minutes later, she paid for her soda and left. Outside, the autumn air was cool enough to sting. The restaurant parking lot was half full. Lily climbed into her aging Honda Civic, closed the door, and finally stopped pretending she was fine. A few tears escaped before she could stop them. Not because Ryan mattered. He didn't. She barely knew him. It was because she was tired. Tired of working 12-hour shifts. Tired of watching families visit their parents twice a year and call it devotion. Tired of stretching every paycheck. Tired of feeling invisible. Most of all, she was tired of moments like this. Moments that quietly reminded her how people measured worth. A woman in a business suit arrived early. A woman in medical scrubs arrived responsible. A woman in caregiver scrubs apparently arrived embarrassing. Lily wiped her eyes angrily. Forget him. The words sounded less convincing out loud. A black SUV pulled into the lot several rows away. The driver stepped out. Tall, broad shoulders, dark coat. The kind of face that looked equally comfortable on a magazine cover or arguing with accountants. Ethan Mercer had just survived a 3-hour board meeting. The meeting had included discussions about declining margins, investor expectations, and one executive who somehow used 50 slides to explain something that could have been summarized in 2 sentences. His head hurt. His patience was gone. His dinner reservation had been the only thing keeping him functional. He was halfway across the parking lot when he heard some crying. He paused, kept walking, then stopped again. The sound wasn't dramatic. It was worse. It sounded exhausted. Ethan looked toward the old Honda. For several seconds, he debated minding his own business. Then he sighed and changed direction. When he knocked lightly on the driver's side window, Lily nearly jumped. She lowered it halfway. Her eyes were red. Embarrassing. Perfect. Exactly how she wanted a stranger to see her. "Can I help you?" she asked. Ethan immediately realized there was no good answer to that question. "I honestly don't know." That surprised a laugh out of her. A small one, but real. "That's not encouraging, fair." He shoved his hands into his coat pockets. "I heard someone crying, and I wanted to make sure you weren't stranded." "I'm not stranded. Good. Just humiliated." Ethan nodded. "Less good." Lily studied him suspiciously. "If you're about to tell me everything happens for a reason, I'll run you over." Without missing a beat, Ethan said, "Fair." "I was actually going to offer fries." She blinked. "What fries?" "That's your emotional support strategy. I've seen worse." Another laugh escaped before she could stop it. The annoying thing was that he wasn't trying too hard. Most men rush to fix things. This stranger simply stood there, willing to let her be upset. For some reason, that felt different. "So," Ethan asked gently, "what happened?" Lily hesitated, then shrugged. "My date saw my uniform and left." Ethan frowned, actually frowned. Not performatively, not politely, genuinely. "He left because of your job?" Apparently caring for old people isn't as sexy as corporate law. The corner of Ethan's mouth twitched. "His loss, you don't even know me." "No," he glanced at her scrubs. "But anyone willing to spend 12 hours taking care of strangers probably deserves better than a guy who runs away before appetizers." For a moment, neither spoke. The parking lot lights glowed above them. Cars came and went. The city moved around them. Lily realized she didn't want this conversation to end, which was strange. She knew absolutely nothing about him, not even his last name. "What do you do?" she asked. Smiled faintly. "I manage people." She narrowed her eyes. That's what serial killers say before documentary. The laugh that escaped him was genuine, unexpected, comfortable. For the first time all day, neither of them felt like they were performing a role. Just two tired people standing in a parking lot. Finally, Ethan glanced toward the restaurant, then back at her. "Would you like to have dinner anyway?" Lily stared at him. As Charity, the question came sharper than she intended, a reflex, a defense. Ethan's expression didn't change. No, his voice was calm, steady, as a woman who got stood up by an idiot. Silence. Then Lily looked away. A reluctant smile tugged at her lips. For the first time that evening, she felt seen instead of judged. "You're really committed to the fries thing, aren't you?" "Extremely." She shook her head. "Okay." Ethan opened the car door for her. Together they walked back toward the restaurant. As they entered, a few curious eyes drifted toward Lily's uniform. She noticed. Of course she noticed. People always noticed. But Ethan didn't hesitate. Didn't seem embarrassed. Didn't lower his voice. Didn't create distance. He simply reached for her chair and pulled it out. As though there were absolutely nothing unusual about a woman in caregiver scrubs, sitting in one of the nicest restaurants in town. And for the first time all night, Lily sat down without wishing she were wearing something else. Halfway through dinner, Lily realized this stranger listened better than most men she'd dated for years. Not the performative kind of listening, where a man nodded while clearly waiting for his turn to talk about cryptocurrency, marathon training, or the one semester he spent in Italy and never emotionally left. Ethan listened as if every sentence had weight. He noticed when her jokes got too sharp. He noticed when she reached for water instead of answering something personal. He noticed, most annoyingly, when she was trying not to look pleased. The waiter had brought fries because Ethan had insisted they were medically necessary after humiliation. Lily had rolled her eyes, but she ate most of them. The restaurant slowly changed around them. Couples finished dessert. Business dinners dissolved into handshakes. A birthday group near the bar sang so badly that even the candles looked embarrassed. Lily told him about Cedar Hollow, the senior living facility where she worked. She told him about Frank, who kept rating the oatmeal like a disappointed food critic. About Mrs. Alvarez, who believed every male nurse was Elvis and flirted accordingly. About Dante, who had hidden an entire contraband cheesecake in his sock drawer and looked genuinely offended when ants discovered it before he did. Ethan laughed, not politely. Not the controlled laugh of a man used to expensive rooms. A real laugh that softened his face and made him look younger than he had in the parking lot. Lily noticed the change and pretended not to. There was something quietly dangerous about being seen when you were too tired to pose. Lily had come in wearing the evidence of her long day. Sanitizer on her hands, a faint crease from her ID badge, exhaustion tucked under her eyes. Somehow Ethan did not look past any of it. He looked at it. That should have made her uncomfortable. It did, but not entirely. When he asked about her work, he didn't call it noble in that distant tone people used when they wanted to admire suffering without touching it. He asked what made the job hard. He asked what made her stay. Lily almost gave him her usual answer: bills, health insurance, momentum. Instead, she found herself telling him about a woman named June, who no longer remembered her daughters but remembered every hymn from childhood. Lily sometimes sang with her while folding laundry, badly enough that June once patted her hand and whispered, "Sweetheart, God forgives effort." Ethan smiled at that, then he grew quiet. Lily noticed shadows behind his eyes too. Expensive coat, polished shoes, watch discreet enough to be more expensive than loud ones. He was not ordinary, she knew that much. But she had met enough polished men to recognize loneliness when it forgot to hide. When she asked what he did, he gave the same vague answer as before. "I manage people." Lily tilted her head. "That's what serial killers say before documentaries." His laugh came easier this time. The evening should have ended there, cleanly, with one strange story she could tell later. The night a handsome stranger saved dinner with fries. Instead, dessert arrived, then coffee, then the kind of silence that did not beg to be filled. Lily caught herself wondering what his hand would feel like near hers and immediately punished herself by drinking coffee too fast. By the time they stepped outside, the parking lot had emptied into long silver stripes of light. The air had cooled. Lily's body remembered all at once that she had been awake since 5. Ethan walked her to her car without making a performance of it. She was reaching for her keys when her phone rang. The name on the screen erased the softness from her face. "Mom's neighbor," Carla. Lily answered. At first she only listened, then her shoulders went rigid. Her mother had left the apartment again. No coat, no phone. Carla had checked the laundry room, the courtyard, the small grocery store on the corner. Nothing. Lily's hand shook as she unlocked her car. Ethan saw it. The evening changed without ceremony. There was no sweeping music, no romantic declaration, no cinematic rain, just Lily trying to breathe while calculating streets, medications, police numbers, and how long a woman with early Alzheimer's could wander before cold became dangerous. Ethan did not ask unnecessary questions. He asked for the address. He offered to drive because his car had better navigation, and because Lily looked like she might steer through a stop sign. Out of panic, she hesitated for half a second, then got in. The next hour had nothing to do with romance. It was street lights, wrong turns, gas stations, phone calls, and Lily pressing her knuckles to her mouth whenever fear got too close to becoming sound. Ethan drove steadily. He did not tell her to calm down. That alone made him almost suspiciously competent. They checked a pharmacy her mother sometimes visited, a closed bakery where she used to buy lemon cookies, a bus stop 3 blocks from the apartment. Lily moved fast, calling her mother's name into the night with a practiced terror that told Ethan this was not the first time. He watched her speak to strangers with exhausted politeness, watched her thank people who barely helped, watched her swallow frustration because panic had no room for pride. Finally, near a small church with a flickering sign, they found her. Marianne Brooks sat on a bench beneath a maple tree, wearing house slippers and Lily's old college sweatshirt. She was holding a paper bulletin from the church door and crying quietly because she could not remember why she had come outside. Lily ran to her, not dramatically, carefully, as if sudden movements might break the moment. She knelt in front of her mother, took both cold hands, and spoke with a gentleness that made Ethan look away for a second. It felt too intimate to witness, not romantic. Human. Marianne recognized Lily after a pause, then forgot she had been missing, then apologized for worrying everyone. Lee's smile like her heart wasn't cracking in public and wrapped her jacket around her mother's shoulders. Ethan stood nearby, useless for once, holding Lily's keys and the weight of what he had just learned. This was her life, not a sad backstory, not a detail, a daily architecture of love, fear, bills, duty, and jokes sharp enough to survive it. They drove Marianne home. Carla met them at the apartment door, relieved and fussing. Lily settled her mother inside, checked the locks, found warmer socks, placed a glass of water by the bed, and smoothed her mother's hair until Marianne drifted into confused sleep. When Lily came back into the hallway, she looked older than 27, and very, very tired. Ethan was about to say something inadequate when the apartment across the hall opened. A young man stepped out holding his phone, the volume loud enough to fill the hallway. A business news anchor's voice cut through the quiet. HealthTech CEO Ethan Mercer faced pressure today after investors questioned Mercer Medical's long-term eldercare strategy. Lily froze. On the glowing screen was Ethan, same face, same calm eyes, different world, suit, podium, cameras. The man beside her was no longer just the stranger from the parking lot. He was Ethan Mercer, CEO, millionaire, maybe billionaire, a man whose life belonged to headlines. The warmth of dinner shifted under her feet, rearranging itself into something uncertain. Ethan saw the realization land. He said her name softly. Lily turned to him. All night she had wondered why he listened so carefully. Now she wondered whether she had been a woman at dinner or a lesson he needed to learn. Her voice came out quiet, sharp enough to hurt. How much of tonight was real? The problem wasn't that he was rich. The problem was that she suddenly didn't know if she had been treated like a woman or a project. For 3 days, Lily Brooks ignored every message. There weren't many that somehow made them harder to ignore. Ethan sent one text the morning after. I hope your mother is doing okay. Another the next evening. No pressure, just checking in. And one final message 2 days later. You asked me how much of that night was real. All of it. That silence. No dramatic declarations. No flowers, no expensive gifts appearing at her doorstep, no assistant calling on his behalf. Just silence. Lily appreciated that, and hated it a little, because it left her alone with her thoughts. At work, she tried to focus on things she could control. Medication schedules, meal plans, doctor appointments, residents who insisted the television remote was part of a government conspiracy, normal things, safe things. Unfortunately, her brain refused to cooperate. Every time she walked past a window, she remembered Ethan helping search dark streets for her mother. Every time she poured coffee, she remembered him laughing so hard at one of Frank's stories that he'd nearly spilled his drink. And every time she thought about texting him back, she remembered the image on that stranger's phone screen. CEO Ethan Mercer. Worth more money than she would probably earn in 10 lifetimes. The distance between them suddenly felt impossible. Not because of the money itself. Because of everything that came with it. Attention, power, influence, expectations. Entire worlds she didn't belong to. By the 4th day, Ethan decided waiting wasn't helping. For the first time in years, he found himself facing a problem he couldn't solve with strategy. Business problems followed rules. People rarely did, especially Lily. Most people reacted predictably when they learned who he was. They became impressed, suspicious. Sometimes all four. Lily had simply disappeared, which irritated him more than he wanted to admit, mostly because he understood why. Late Friday afternoon, Ethan parked outside the senior care facility where Lily worked. The building wasn't impressive. Neither were the salaries of the people working inside. Yet every resident depended on them. That realization lingered as he entered. The receptionist recognized him immediately. The residents did not. One elderly woman pointed at him from a wheelchair. "Elvis." Ethan looked around. There was no Elvis. The woman pointed harder. "You've aged terribly." Several staff members started laughing. For the first time all week, Ethan smiled. Lily appeared moments later. The smile disappeared. Not because she was angry. Because she looked tired. The kind of tired sleep couldn't fix. She crossed her arms. "What are you doing here?" "Apologizing. You drove 20 minutes to apologize?" 35, that almost earned a smile. Almost. They stepped outside near a small courtyard behind the building. Autumn leaves gathered around empty benches. For a moment neither spoke. Finally Ethan broke the silence. "I should have told you who I was. Yes. I wasn't trying to trick you, I know. Then why are you angry?" Lily stared toward the parking lot. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter, more honest. "Because I liked you before I knew." The admission landed harder than either expected. She took a breath. "Do you know how many men tell me I'm kind?" Ethan said nothing. "Do you know how many tell me my work is important?" Still nothing. Lily laughed softly, without humor. "Men always love my kindness." Her eyes found his. "They just don't love the life that comes with it." That was the wound, not Ryan, not one bad date. Years of people admiring compassion from a safe distance. Years of treating caregiving like a virtue rather than a career, a personality trait rather than a reality. Ethan understood something then. Not completely, but enough. Enough to stop defending himself. Enough to start listening. "I'm trying to understand." Lily nodded slowly. "That's probably the most honest thing you've said." From there, something changed. Not dramatically. Not romantically. Just enough. The messages resumed. Occasional conversations, coffee after shifts, walks that ended before they became dates. Neither pushed. Neither defined anything. For the first time, both were allowing something to grow without rushing it, which made the next problem worse. At Mercer Health Technologies, a proposal landed on Ethan's desk, a cost reduction initiative. One line item immediately caught his attention. Funding cuts for senior care support programs. Programs designed to help nursing homes and assisted living facilities adopt affordable monitoring technology. Programs many investors considered unnecessary. During the board meeting, the opposition arrived in the form of Margaret Hale, 62. Brilliant, respected, feared. Margaret didn't dislike elderly people. She disliked losing money. "The numbers aren't there," she said. "The returns are weak." Several board members nodded. Margaret continued. "Our responsibility is to shareholders." Ethan glanced around the room. A month ago, he might have agreed. Now he pictured exhausted caregivers working double shifts. He pictured Lily searching for her mother in the dark. He pictured facilities struggling to survive. For the first time, the spreadsheet looked different. The people behind it looked different. Meanwhile, outside that boardroom, another problem was quietly developing. A local blogger spotted Ethan and Lily together outside a coffee shop, then again leaving a community fundraiser, then again walking through a farmer's market. Nothing scandalous, nothing intimate, just enough. The headline appeared 2 days later. Billionaire CEO dating nursing home caregiver. By afternoon, social media had taken over. The comments were brutal. Some most mocked Lily. Gold digger, charity case, Cinderella in scrubs. People who knew absolutely nothing suddenly had opinions. Thousands of them. Lily tried not to read, failed. Every comment felt like confirmation of her worst fear. Not that people disliked her. That they could never imagine her belonging beside someone like Ethan. Then Ryan Foster called. The irony almost made her laugh. Almost. They met briefly at a coffee shop. Ryan looked comfortable from the moment he sat down. He apologized, genuinely. He admitted what she already knew. He'd been embarrassed. He'd worried what colleagues might think. He'd chosen appearance over character. For a moment, Lily respected the honesty. Then Ryan said something she couldn't stop thinking about. People from different worlds don't survive this. Not cruel. Not malicious. Just convinced, as though he were describing gravity. Something inevitable. Something true. That night, Lily sat alone in her apartment long after midnight. The internet mocked her. Ryan's words echoed in her head. And somewhere beneath everything else lived a harder question. Could she really spend years proving herself? Proving she belonged? Proving she wasn't after money? Proving she was enough? The next evening she met Ethan in a quiet park. The sun had nearly disappeared. The city lights glowed beyond the trees. He knew something was wrong the moment he saw her face. Neither sat down, neither pretended. Lily folded her arms, not defensively, to keep herself steady. Ethan, he waited, her eyes glistened. Not with tears, with heartbreak. The adult kind, the kind that arrives with clarity. I don't want to spend my life proving I belong beside someone. The words settled between them. Heavy, final. And for the first time since meeting her in that parking lot, Ethan realized there were some battles he couldn't fight for her. Because this one belonged to Lily. And she was walking away, before either of them had the chance to become something real. For the first time in his life, Ethan Mercer couldn't solve the problem with a signature. He couldn't negotiate it, couldn't outwork it, couldn't build a strategy around it, and he certainly couldn't buy his way through it. Lily had walked away because she needed peace more than possibility. For once, Ethan respected that. So he let her go, not because he stopped caring, because caring and possessing were not the same thing. That lesson cost him more than any business deal ever had. The weeks that followed were strangely quiet. No calls, no surprise visits, no carefully engineered coincidences. Lily returned to her routines, work, her mother, bills, life. She missed him more than she expected, which irritated her. Missing someone was inconvenient when you were trying to convince yourself that leaving had been the right choice. Meanwhile, Ethan buried himself in work, not as an escape, as a decision. The board vote was approaching, and the elder care initiative was hanging by a thread. The proposal would expand affordable monitoring systems, caregiver support resources, and emergency tracking technology for assisted living facilities across several states. Investors hated it. The profit margins weren't attractive enough. The spreadsheets agreed. Unfortunately for the spreadsheets, Ethan could no longer see only numbers. Now he saw faces, overworked caregivers, residents forgotten by their families, adult children trying to care for aging parents while working 2 jobs. People like Lily, not Lily specifically. That distinction mattered, because he refused to turn her into an argument. She wasn't evidence, she wasn't a symbol, she was a person. The board meeting arrived on a gray Thursday morning. The atmosphere felt less like a meeting and more like a trial. Executives filled the conference room. Financial projections glowed across giant screens. Margaret Hale sat at the far end of the table, calm and prepared. As always, she wasn't a villain. That was what made her difficult. She genuinely believed she was protecting the company. When discussions began, opposition came quickly. Margins, growth targets, investor expectations, quarterly performance. The language of business filled the room. Then Ethan stood. The room quieted. For several moments, he simply looked around the table. At people he had known for years, people who respected him, people who might vote against him anyway. Finally, he spoke, not about public relations, not about branding, something else. The people who care for our elderly aren't invisible. His voice remained calm, steady. We simply benefit from pretending they are. Silence settled over the room. Several executives shifted uncomfortably. Ethan continued. He spoke about caregivers leaving the profession because support systems were inadequate. He spoke about nursing facilities struggling with staffing shortages. He spoke about the cost of ignoring problems until they became crises. Most importantly, he spoke about responsibility. Not charity, responsibility. The difference mattered. Margaret responded immediately, and forcefully. Responsibility to whom? Her voice cut through the room. Because our responsibility is to shareholders. Several board members nodded. Margaret leaned forward. The proposal costs $1 million. It generates long-term value. The tension rose, back and forth, data against principle. Quarterly results against long-term impact. Neither side entirely wrong, neither side entirely right. Hours passed, arguments sharpened. Votes shifted, returned. Shifted at one point, Ethan realized he might not narrow decisively. Then he made a choice, a real one. Not a speech, not a promise, a sacrifice. Funding is the concern, he said quietly. I'll forfeit my executive performance bonus for the next 3 years. The room froze. Several people looked genuinely shocked. Margaret stared at him. Ethan wasn't finished. I'll also restructure my compensation package. Now even the board members supporting him looked stunned. Because this wasn't symbolic, this was expensive. Painfully expensive. His future earnings, his leverage, his influence, his ability to negotiate future authority, all reduced, all voluntarily. Not because it would make him look good. Most investors would hate it. Not because it guaranteed success. It didn't. Simply because he believed it was worth the cost. For the first time that morning, Margaret had no immediate response. The vote followed an hour later. Close, uncomfortably close. 1 vote, that was the margin. 1 vote separated success from failure. The initiative passed barely. The room erupted into quiet conversations, relief, frustration, disbelief. Ethan sat back in his chair, exhausted. victorious, and strangely sad, because the person he wanted to tell wasn't there. Months passed. Winter softened into spring. The headlines moved on. The internet found new people to judge. Life continued. At Cedar Hollow, changes began appearing. New technology, improved support programs, resources that made difficult jobs slightly less impossible. Just help. The useful kind. Lily noticed everyone did. She never asked why, partly because she already knew. One afternoon, the facility director invited her to attend a regional launch event celebrating the program's expansion. Lily almost declined. Public events weren't her thing, but eventually she agreed. The ceremony took place in a newly renovated community center. Caregivers, administrators, local leaders, and healthcare workers filled the room. Speeches, coffee, name tags, exactly the kind of event Lily usually avoided. She was balancing a paper cup of coffee when she heard a familiar laugh somewhere behind her. Her stomach reacted before her brain did. Slowly, she turned. Ethan stood near the back of the room, older somehow, not physically, just quieter, more settled. For a moment neither moved. Months of distance hung between them. Then Ethan crossed the room. No audience, no performance, no dramatic reunion. Just one person walking toward another. When he stopped in front of her, both smiled. Small smiles, real ones. "I didn't know you'd be here," Lily said. "I wasn't sure you wanted to know." That earned a laugh. The familiar kind, the dangerous kind, the kind she'd missed. For a moment neither rushed to fill the silence. Then Ethan spoke, carefully, as though handling something fragile. "Can I ask you to dinner again?" Lily looked at him, really looked at him. Not the CEO, not the headlines, not the man from the parking lot, just Ethan. The man who had listened. The man who had stayed. A smile slowly appeared. "Only if you stop introducing yourself as someone who manages people." His laugh arrived instantly. "Fair," he shook his head. "I'm still working on that." Outside, evening sunlight painted the sidewalks gold. When the event ended, they left the building together. Not holding hands, not yet. Neither seemed in a hurry. Their shoulders brushed once as they walked. Then again, natural, unforced. Two people moving in the same direction. For now, that was enough. Because the right man isn't the one who sees your value when you're dressed your best. He's the one who still pulls out a chair for you when the entire world is staring at your uniform. And sometimes, the kind of love that lasts doesn't begin when someone rescues you. It begins when they simply refuse to look away. Sometimes, the most important moment in a love story isn't the first kiss. It's the moment someone decides not to look away. What if the people who walk away aren't proof that you're not enough? Ryan saw a uniform and left. Ethan saw the same uniform and pulled out a chair. What if they're simply making room for the person who can truly see you? And that small difference changed everything. Because Lily never needed someone to rescue her. She was already carrying responsibilities most people couldn't imagine. What she needed was someone who respected the life she had built even when it wasn't glamorous. Maybe that's the lesson hidden inside this story. The right person won't ask you to become someone else before they value you. They'll see who you already are, and they'll stay. Never confuse being admired with being respected. One is easy, the other is rare. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing to Soul Stirring Stories. Until next time, take care of yourself and the people who quietly take care of everyone else.